Hi everybody, BTV Digger here. For our first hunt of 2016, I was able to get out a couple days ago last weekend and spend a few hours hunting in the woods in a big park around where I live here. I was fortunate not to have any snow on the ground, and the ground was partially thawed. So come and join me for a few hours of relic hunting and see what we can find in the woods. So here we are at the site. After about a mile walk, it's not that far. There are a number of cellar holes in this park. This is probably my favorite. I found quite a few things here. About 6 Indian head pennies, a large cent, a mercury dime, a lot of old relics, buckles, bridle rosette, things of that nature. The property is huge. As you can see, it just goes forever. There's fields everywhere, so you can spend days and days out here and not hit it all. But anyway, I've been here a number of times, probably 4 or 5 times, and I find stuff every time. So let's see what we can do this time, and I'll get back with you as soon as I find something of interest. It's cold today, about 34 degrees, which is crazy for northern Vermont in the early part of February. Part of the ground's frozen, but back here in the woods, still diggable quite a bit. So we'll see what we can find with the AT Pro, and I'll get back with you. Here we are. I've got my first target of the day. It's been about 20 minutes into the hunt, and I'm quite cold, but let's go down here and take a look. And it's right down in here. Let me go ahead and get my pin pointer out. And I'm not doing any live digs today. Right in there. Generally because it's just too dang cold. And I already dug this out and looked at it just a second. And it is an old penny. And I'm not exactly sure what it is, if it's a wheat or an Indian. I found about 4 Indians here earlier in the fall. And this is an old site, so I would not be surprised if this is another Indian head penny. But never assume too much in this hobby. It could be a memorial for all I know, but it looks a little older than that. It was green. It wasn't too deep, about 4 inches. So we will come back with you, and we'll show you what it is here in a little while. And we'll be back with you if I find anything else. So I just dug the Indian penny, or at least what I think that is, about 5 minutes ago. And always check around that general vicinity to see if you can find something else nearby, because there was activity there. And I've got a signal right over here. And let's take a look and see what it is. It seems a little bit different than a coin, although it rings up in the mid-tones, so it's something better than a chunk of iron or something. But you see, I'm kind of getting, it's kind of long and bigger, so I'm not exactly sure what it is, but let's take a look and see what it is. Oh wow, look at that. It's an old knife, or an old file or something like that. Not exactly sure. It's got some, I think it's a knife because it's got little notchings out here, little pegs, like where a wooden handle would have been, long gone, and then broken off here at the end. So probably like an old butter knife or something like that, or maybe even an old shaving razor. Who knows? Nice little old relic, but I'll keep it. We'll move on to the next target. I'll be back with you soon. Well, I've moved away from the cellar hole and down the rock wall. As you can see, it's a vast property. There's about 8 cellar holes in this whole big park with a school and a dump. There's another little cellar hole down about a couple hundred yards that way. It's been a little slow going, but I finally got a signal and I think I see something round in the hole. I never get too excited in this hobby, because you never know if it's just a clad quarter or a clad coin, because this is a very heavily used park with many people. I've already said hi to about 15 people today already. Hundreds of people a day walk through here. So it's been heavily hit, but you never know what you're going to get. So let's see what this could be. It could be just a clad quarter, and probably is. I am not sure what that is. It's not a clad quarter. Got some sort of design on it. Let me get back with you here in just a second. We'll see what it is. I got a creek right nearby here, and I can go wash it off, and my fingers will freeze off, but maybe I can get a better idea. I'll be right back. Okay, I washed it off in the creek a little bit, and it's hard to make out here just from an initial washing there, but this is a Canadian large cent. And it's hard to make out a date. I thought I saw 1916 on it, but I'm not sure. A lot of these cellar holes around here were 1800s into maybe 1910, 1920 before they were abandoned. Some earlier than others. That last site I was at went all the way back to 1835 or something like that. You can barely make out 1 cent there, and there's pretty good detail on this, so I should be able to clean up pretty good. I'll try to get the detail cleaned up and show you a better shot after I get home and run it through some simple cleaning methods. But very nice find, Canadian large cent. I'll take that every day. Well, just about 5 minutes later, after that Canadian large cent, I got another good target in the hole. I had a quick peek on what it is. Nothing spectacular, but it's fine nonetheless. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what it is. We'll come right down here. I had to dig under a big old massive root. Took me forever. I still can't get over the fact that the soil's not frozen here in Vermont, northern Vermont in early February. Just absolutely nuts. Always good to bring a trowel and a shovel with you in the woods, because the trowel will still really help you out in those hard to get places that are around roots or stuff where the shovel can't get. So I always bring in my backpack, I'll bring a trowel with me, as along with my big digger shovel. Of course, if you're digging in somebody's yard, a trowel is always the way to go to keep the damage minimal, but this is very helpful. And if we look here in my pinpointer, you can see how the pinpointer is kind of going off in many directions here. It tells you it's probably a little bit bigger than a coin, but it was ringing up a solid 80 all the way down on my AT Pro, so I know it's not an iron. And there's no grunting or anything. And what you can see here is it's the top of an old lantern part. I found many of these over the years. This one is a pretty common one. It doesn't have the little spooler on it that would twist the wick up and down. That's either broken off or was on another part of the lantern. But that's brass, and that was why it was ringing up very high. A lot of times these items I'll actually put in the rock tumbler, just like I put my non-valuable coins in. It will clean up brass really nice and shiny. Now, it won't be golden like it was before, but it'll be a nice bronzish, shiny color. And if they're not totally trashed, I always like to put a few of those in there, and it makes the relics look really nice. So, not a spectacular find, but a common find, but definitely a keeper. Old lantern part from probably 1900 or so, late 1800s. All right, I laid my machine down right over there, and I've got another target in the hole here. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It rang up good, and then I got down closer, and it started grunting like iron. It's right here, but it looks kind of odd, like a grate or something. So I'm going to pull it out of the ground and let's see what we got here. Some kind of odd thing here. It sure looks like a grate of maybe a small stove, or maybe it's got some words up here. It says bank. I don't know, is that a coin bank? I can't imagine. Maybe. An old iron coin bank, or maybe bank was the name of a small stove company, but it looks like the front of a bank now that I look at it. Isn't that odd? Very strange. But I will keep that one. It's a little heavy. It's made out of iron, but I can do some electrolysis on that and maybe do some research. If anybody knows what that is, give me a holler out. My guess is an opening to a small wood stove, but who knows? It looks like the front of the bank, and it says bank on it. Anyway, on to the next time. On to the next find, I should say. And here's my next find of the day. I'm right along the old road here. I kind of left that other cellar hole after finding that large cent and that lantern part. I hang around for a few minutes each site, and I just move on. I've hit them all before, and I'm just going to walk the old road up the hill. There's a couple other foundations up here. And I found another little relic here. I believe, and you experts out there, the more I get into this hobby, I know what I'm going to be looking at. I believe this is like a valve cover or something for an old Model T Ford. Hi. They used to run cars up on this road a long time ago, so this is probably off a Model A or Model T Ford valve stem cover. Okay, now for the wrap up here, as we've gotten back home into a warmer environment here, and I'll just go through some of the few finds I've got today. Not a lot of stuff to talk about, but a few decent keepers here. A couple of the things I didn't film, just your standard memorial penny. Popped out of the ground along the old road, 1982. This sounded really good. It's like a lead grommet, older, Boy, those rings, they sound fantastic when you have them in the ground. You swear you're going to have a coin or something really good, but just some sort of lead grommet or washer. Here is the knife I found, one of the earlier finds of the day. I still haven't really cleaned this up. I took a wire brush to it briefly just to get a little bit of the crud off of there. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this or not. I may put this under electrolysis. It's small enough to see if you can bring anything out, but really it's not anything to write home about. Could be a shaving razor, or more likely just probably a plain butter knife that's broken off at one end. But an interesting relic nonetheless. Now this right here, you remember when I popped that out of the ground, what this is a child's penny bank, actually the front end of the penny bank. These were made, several of these, including skyscrapers and banks and other little buildings, by the A.C. Williams Company back in the late 1800s to very early part of the 1900s, or early part of the 20th century, I should say. If you do an online Google search or image search for A.C. Williams penny banks, iron penny banks, you'll find these. This had a back to it as well that was complementary to the front, and you actually would have a little keyhole right here that you could twist open, and then the bank would pop open and you can get your pennies out of there. So this is going to be an excellent little candidate for electrolysis for me. The iron is still really in solid shape, not a ton of rust on it. That shouldn't take too long to clean up, and I'll definitely keep that. It's got the front end of a bank on there. Complete ones in nice condition sell for quite a few dollars on eBay or online. Certainly I'm not in the business of selling a lot of this stuff, and this is just a partial one anyway. But a very nice relic, and I will definitely keep that into my collection. Child's penny bank from the turn of the century. Okay, moving on here. What we have here, you saw this earlier, just a standard lantern part. This was the part where the wick would come out of, and you would have another part below this, down below, where you could actually spool up the wick. So this is just a standard lantern part. I found tons of these over the years. Made of brass, ring up really good, so you definitely have to dig these every time. I'm probably not going to keep this one, because this one's kind of banged up and everything. I've got ones downstairs in much nicer shape and more complete. But I thought I'd show you that anyway. This little guy right here, I actually was mistaken when I said a valve stem cover on the video. This is actually a radiator cap off a Model T or a Model A Ford truck or car. I'm not sure. I'm not an early Ford expert, but these are fairly common finds. I believe this is made out of brass or some aluminum alloy. You can still see the shiny there coming through on the top. But these would have a threaded outside edge, and then on the inside edge they weren't threaded, so they'd pop on, and if you hit a bump on an old road, they'd pop off quite easily. So you find these quite a bit. This is I've found some fragments of these through the years, but I've never found one in complete condition. So I'll probably try to clean this up a little better and keep that. That's kind of a nice early relic. So a Model A, Model T Ford radiator cap. Okay, and to the last two finds. This was that unidentified coin I had found earlier, and I got to tell you, it's still barely identifiable. It's an Indian head penny. I was able to do a little bit of cleaning with some light soap and water, and then I put a little peroxide bath in it. You can barely make out the 1 cent in the shield right at the top of the coin here. The obverse, or the front side, is totally toasted. If I wetted it down, you'd be able to vaguely make out the Indian head on there. I certainly couldn't get a date off of it. I thought I saw 18 something on there, which based off the date of the site it most likely is. Of all the Indian heads I found out of there, all of them are 1800s. But what the heck, I'll just throw that in the unidentifiable coin bin and leave it at that. Really valueless little old Indian head penny, but an interesting relic. And then finally, the piece de resistance of the day's hunt, my Canadian large cent. When I got it back home and started cleaning this thing off, I noticed there was a lot of nice shiny patina on this. And I didn't clean this off other than soaking this in very warm water and using a toothpick. And the toothpicks I usually use like barbecue skewer toothpicks, or something you put a shish kebab on where you can hold it like a pencil. It's a longer instrument and you can give a little bit more force down on wiping this stuff off. It's in excellent shape. And I'm pretty much done cleaning it. Some of the other kind of crud on here, you can see it's in 1891, which actually is a semi-key date. Some of the extra crud on here is really not going to come off. That's actually part of the coin that was starting to corrode a little bit, so I'm going to leave it pretty much as that. On that 1891, by the way, it is a semi-key date. They only made about 1.5 million of these guys, and there's about 6 varieties. Mine is one of the more common varieties. I believe it's large date, large leaves. There's small date, large leaves, small date, small leaves. Also, many combinations of coins on that, and depending on the condition, you can pay a nice little chunk of money for them if you look them online. This one, of course, being dug, is not going to be quite worth as much. But pretty good detail. I mean, you can see on Queen Vicky's head and her crown there. Still probably some fine detail on the coin outside just the obvious blemishes and years in the ground. So that was definitely my find of that day's hunt. And believe me, I'll take that on a cold winter's day in February here in northern New England when we had no snow on the ground. Now we've got snow on the ground and it's frozen rock solid out there, so I'm probably done for the rest of the year until about April. So I want to thank you for joining me today. And I'll certainly be back on a future date come springtime, and we'll get together for some more, hopefully, fruitful hunts. Thanks for joining me, and have a nice day.